but we have so many prospects across this property that give us a pipeline of exploration for the next 20 years. And so that's the fun thing about what we've accumulated, is that there's once we've moved this into the stage that we can box it up and sell it off, we can keep going.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host Lucian Valkovic, and before I announce my guest, just a reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy or sell any shares, products or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. And my guest today is Stefan Sklepowicz, CEO of Kirkland Lake Discoveries Corp, a company with assets in Kirkland Lake, Ontario, Canada. Stefan, you are for the first time in my show, so a warm welcome to you. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Lucho. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, I look forward to speak with you about the company's prospects, developments. But before we do that, I want to hear your take on the gold market dynamics. How do you view the current state of the gold market given the global economic trends and demand drivers like central bank purchases, investor sentiment? And my main question, how do you see it going forward? What are your expectations for gold price trends, let's say in the next year or two, something like that?
Sure. So the interesting thing for me is that this has been a few years in the making. To me, the turning point was in COVID, whenever we started printing money like crazy to cover all of these economic downturns that were going to occur. And instead of occurring, we basically created a hyperinflationary environment. When you print that much money and when you have that much debt ongoing, there's only one response, and that is inflation, and that's going to be hyperinflation. And in the test of time, the only thing that's ever been able to go against inflation or hyperinflation has been precious metals. Bitcoin has joined the scene, and it's still not fully tested. It hasn't gone through a major correction or upheaval from that regard. I think gold is one of the only things that can give you security in this type of environment. It's one of the reasons that I moved into the sector in 2020, where I could see the writing was on the wall and that there was no recovery from this. The debt has gotten to the point where the GDP is not going to cover it. So if that's the case, there's only one solution, and that's to decrease the overall cost of things, which means increasing the value of your money in that hyperinflationary environment. And so we've seen, since 2020, a steady, regular increase in the price of gold. And then in turn, it took a while, but it's coming now, where we saw the major producers get some uplift. And then in turn, we're starting to see those mid-tiers and those assets that are being put into development are starting to get some love. And a lot of times in the past, what you see is after those mid-tiers and those producers, the developers are starting to get some attention, then it trickles down into those juniors. And so that's the way that I like to play the gold market, as much as I'll hold bullion to make sure that there's some wealth protected. I'm not going to get that exponential growth, and that's what I'm a big fan of when it comes to junior explorcos, and especially in the precious metal space.
That's a very good point. You are for the first time in my show, so I want to unpack your projects. You have a pretty impressive 40,000 hectare land package in Abitibi Greenstone Belt in Ontario. Tell me, what is the current stage of those projects? What do you have there? Give me some color on, give me some basics on what you have over there.
Sure. So the land package that we've assembled has taken years. In the Abitibi, everybody thinks they're sitting on the next mine, so they hold on to their land, with very tight held hands, and so negative markets, bear markets, are the only time that you can accumulate that type of land. And so we were able to make deals with local prospectors and landholders to basically bring this together. And so, situated in the Blake River group of rocks within the Abitibi. So, for those listeners that don't know, the Blake River group of rocks are home to some of the most prolific mines in the Abitibi in Canada, in Quebec, Ontario. It's the Horn Mine, Cumont, La Ronde, those types of mines. They're absolute monsters. They're huge. They are typically VMS in nature, polymetallic, but they always have a high grade gold kicker. So 6 grams per ton, that sort of thing, over 80 million ounces or 80 million tons. So very, very big, prolific mines. And so on the Ontario side of the border, it's been overlooked. There's cover on that side, which makes it a little bit more difficult to explore, but it's also the reason that something hasn't been found up to this point in time, which for us, using a modern approach with a large land package allows you to glimpse underneath that cover using geophysics and geochemistry, as well as artificial intelligence, which helps us to formulate plans and formulate, attack strategies on this massive land package.
Let's touch a bit on the current exploration program you have over there. You had a press release yesterday where you reported that 3 additional holes at KL West intersected semi-massive to massive sulfides near the Winnie shaft. Can you please provide me more info about this? What is the significance of this?
Certainly. That style of mineralization is exactly what we would expect to see at Horn, at La Ronde, those semi-massive to massive sulfides. The thing that got us extremely excited about these drill holes isn't necessarily the sulfides, it was the fluids that came along with it. And so I'm going to backtrack just a little bit to help give a little bit more of a backstory, because the west side of our property had not had a ton of exploration. It's undercover. The things that were above cover, didn't look prospective necessarily. And so what we ended up doing is a broad scale geochemistry program on the west side of our property. And so we did soil sampling, which gives you an idea of what kind of mineralization is at bedrock. And from that, it gave us a bunch of clusters of mineralization and pathfinder minerals for intrusion related and VMS related types of deposits. And so this all situated around a 17-kilometer halo of the Winnie Lake Pluton. And so that started our exploration down there and getting into seeing, okay, what else is there? Up to this point in time, any of the drilling that had been done at the Winnie Lake had been focused on a VMS style. And so those black smokers from the bottom of the ocean falling over and basically becoming a lens of mineralization. And so what we did is we took the approach of, okay, well, we think this is from the intrusion. The intrusion brought in this mineralization, it brought in these fluids, and that's where it deposited these massive sulfides and sulfide bodies. And so our approach was drilling has been here and everything else has been to the east of that. That's the way that it would work if it was a VMS deposit. For us, we go, okay, well, let's move closer to the intrusion because we think that's where that's coming from. And so we moved to the west. And from that, it was about a 15-meter step out from the known showing at the Winnie Lake shaft. And that's where we hit massive sulfides in our first hole. From there, we set up to see if it continues between those two and if it's trending towards the west. And that's why we put those 3 more holes between those 2 spaces. And we were happy to find out that it did run, or that it did have massive sulfides. We haven't gotten assays back yet, but it's a massive opportunity from that regard, in that we're getting a clear sign that this is an intrusion related system, and that those fluids are associated with it, and that there's so much more to that, because with those intrusion based systems, it's not just a singular event that it pulsed up. What we're seeing in those rocks is there's multiple stages of mineralization. There's a lot of alteration. There's a broad range of geochemistry that's shown in the rocks, and the assays are going to tell us exactly what that alteration halo is. But what we're taking from it and the excitement of it is this is a big hot system that brought in a lot of fluids. some of the grab samples that we had over 1,000 grams per ton bismuth in some of the quartz veins. And bismuth it's one of those minerals where it's more rare than gold, but it doesn't have a lot of, it's not a precious metal. It's not used in a lot of industry. And so it doesn't have a high value. But one thing it does in these systems is it lowers the boiling point for gold. So the more gold can be introduced into the system. And if that's the case, then we can expect that at somewhere along the lines here, we're going to be finding a feeder system that brought in all these fluids.
Yeah, I'm not a geo, but I know the importance of fluids in the exploration. Can you provide details on the total number of holes planned for this drilling program, the meterage may be involved, and how this fit into the broader exploration strategy for this property?
So this drill program, the whole point of it was to test this thesis. And so we were planned for 2,000 meters. We've actually paused at 1,700 to give us the opportunity to absorb this geochemistry. And then we'll be resuming. Once we get that back, we can go through it, figure out exactly what it's showing us and where we should be vectoring. So the total number of holes we did was 10 holes, 1,700 meters. And that gave us a really good test to ensure that this was an intrusion-based system. From there, we're going to be able to do our geochemistry, which will allow us to vector in on those alteration halos, which the alteration halo will allow us to see where those fluids are coming from. And so it will allow us to vector better to go towards the root of the intrusion. The best way that I can describe it is we think we've hit a branch of one of the trees and we want to hit the trunk. And so it's still early stages in that these are the first holes that we've put into this system. And so we didn't want to rush and just do a ton of holes and do battleships across this entire area. It's okay, let's absorb the information that we have with the geochemistry. We're going to be doing a helicopter MT survey coming up, which will also give us a 3D dimension to the information that we have as well. So right now we have really good high density magnetic survey that's been completed, the geophysics. And the reason why that's important is that magnetite came in with those fluids. And so we see, a band of magnetite attached to the massive sulfides. And so that magnetic data is highly valuable. It shows us exactly where to vector into. But it's a 2D, signal in that we're getting it mainly from surface. When you invert it, it's not necessarily 100% reliable. And so getting an MT survey while you combine it with that magnetic data will give us a beautiful 3D view of exactly what we think is going on. So we plan on aggressively testing this system. I'm not one to sit around and wait. This has been killing me, seeing these rocks and going through it and then going, okay, well, we need to absorb this information to make the best choices going forward. But as soon as we have that, we're back in the field, we're back drilling. The beautiful thing about Kirkland Lake is that you can drill 24, hours a day and 7 days a week, 12 months of the year. So easy access, able to drive right up to, the drill and everything else. And so there's no harm in us taking those couple of weeks or whatever it may be to absorb all the data properly to attack this with much better precision going forward.
Sure. How many samples are pending and what are your expectations about the timeline of the results?
Yeah, so we're around 1,000 samples for that we're expecting. Timeline in this situation, I'd love to give you something with confidence, but labs are notorious for saying it's going to be 3 weeks and then it ends up being 6 or it ends up being 10. We're at 3 weeks now from the first set of samples that went in, and so we're at the minimum. Your guess is as good as mine as to when those samples are going to be coming back.
Yeah, I hear you. You mentioned infrastructure and surrounding neighbors. Who are your neighbors over there, and how is the infrastructure around the property? What do you have there?
Being in Kirkland Lake, it's a 100-year-old camp, right? It's been a mining town forever. That's how it was founded. It was a mining town. And so we're lucky that we share borders with major companies. We have Stellar Gold to the northwest. We have Agnico Eagle to the south, and one of our largest neighbors, in that we share the longest border with them. I think of Canada and the U.S. type of thing. And then we have, Pan American Silver to, the southeast. And then El Dorado has optioned ground basically between our two land packages, KL West and KL East. They also hold the donut hole in our KL West package. And so lots of major neighbors. From an infrastructure standpoint, like I said, it's a mining town. So there's everything's set up there. Macassa has been in production for almost 30 years now. Agnico Eagle is moving the Upper Beaver, which is another intrusion-based system, polymetallic, primarily gold, copper. They're moving that into production. They just shown their head frame, and it's state of the art. It's incredible, and so seeing that being put into construction, and then in turn the mine going to be going to production in the next less than 5 years now, is very exciting for the camp. That it's up and coming, it's growing, even though it's 100 years old, which is the incredible part. And so our projects being more greenfields and early stage gives us the opportunity to move into the queue for the next stage of mining that could be coming down the road. And so that's how we've positioned ourselves with this massive land package with a ton of opportunities. The KL West is just a piece of it, something that is very exciting right now, and there's no doubt about it. But we have so many prospects across this property that give us a pipeline of exploration for the next 20 years. And so that's the fun thing about what we've accumulated, is that there's once we've moved this into the stage that we can box it up and sell it off, we can keep going, and that's the fun part about our company.
Got it. You have the cooperation agreement with the Beaver House First Nation and funding from the Ontario Junior Exploration Program. That has supported your exploration efforts. How are these partnerships facilitating the current drilling program at KL West?
That's a great question, because that's one of the biggest concerns with the Canadian market right now, is the interaction with First Nation groups and where we stand. And so we have really good relationships, not only just with Beaver House, but all of the First Nations that share our territory. And so we have very strong working relationships with them, open communication, agreements in place to ensure that we have a pathway forward. So there's no barriers from that regard. The Ontario government is of the frame of mind that mining is what's going to provide stability and growth in the economy going forward. I don't have to preach to you or your audience about the transition into the green metals economy and everything else, but Canada got shooken up pretty hard in the last year with the administration in the South introducing tariffs and threats of joining the US, and so it's changed the way that we've looked at things, and that we understand that we need to provide for ourselves. We can't rely on other people taking care of us, and a big part of that is the metals production chain. China has cut off flow for antimony or other things. What's to say that they're not going to go, okay, well, there's no more copper, there's no more this, there's no more whatever rare earth or critical mineral. And so the support from the Ontario government is move these things faster along, permits faster, mines faster. And so the support that they're giving through the Ontario Junior Exploration Program allows us to do more work with that extra funding. And so we've applied again for the OJIP funding for this year. We're still waiting to hear, but we put in a nice strong application. I'm sure we're qualifying for that as well.
Okay. The junior mining sector has faced challenges in attracting investor attention despite strong gold prices. How do the recent KL West drilling results, confirming a robust polymetallic system, position your company to stand out among other junior explorers in the Abitibi Greenstone Belt?
Yeah, the Abitibi is such a prolific belt, right? Just holding land in that area is a value, but when you can prove your land is endowed, then people start paying attention because they know there's no other barriers. You have your infrastructure, you have your support of First Nations, you have support of government. Nobody's going to take that project away from you. So, you go through your checklist of all the things that you have to be concerned about, and all those things are gone. And so as soon as you can show that there's discovery potential, that's where people really start paying attention. And the exciting thing about our discovery potential is it's a district. You can't get a district anymore in the Abitibi. That's not a thing. And so being able to show that we have 17 kilometers around this Pluton that is potentially minerally endowed is what's getting people really excited. And since we put out our press release, the number of phone calls that I've gotten, the number of messages of people being interested, and what makes me excited is that it's primarily from the geological community. It's not necessarily from the street, wondering what's happening. They'll respond once we can put out assays that show that that it is something. Because a lot of times people will say, oh, well, it's massive sulfides. It could just be pyrrhotite and there's nothing in it, or it could be this, right? And so assays truly will tell us what kind of endowment we're looking at, and that's why we haven't taken off yet. And so what I'm excited about is people see the rocks and they see the alteration, they see the amount of power that came through that system, and that it's not a singular pulse and it's done. There's brecciation in the syenite. There's multiple phases. And so getting those phone calls from people who are in the know, look at it and go, this is exciting. You guys are onto something big. This is going to be a huge system, and so those people will tell their, Eric Sprotts and Rob McEwen's, who are all playing in our story already, and then we get Eric buying on the open market on our story, and so it shows you that what we're putting together and what we found is exciting, and that we really shouldn't have any issues getting investment for this going forward, because like I said, I think we're onto something very big here, and the potential for it to be another Horn Mine or an Upper Beaver is very exciting, and we think we're on the right track here.
Yeah, you actually answered a big portion of my next question. When it comes to the phone calls, I wanted to ask, is Eric calling Rob McEwen? And of course, you have Newfound Gold Corp as your big shareholder. So pretty impressive share registry. So just like you said, you have support from the big guys. You have the support from the retail. How is the feedback? That was my main question from this result.
Incredible. Like it's you go through the slogs as a CEO, and I've been through some really tough times with these markets and the lack of attention that we've gotten, and we've worked really hard along the way. And so it's unbelievably rewarding when you're getting these messages and these phone calls and everybody giving you full support, and the confidence that you're doing all these things correctly, which is really nice. But overwhelmingly positive. I haven't had any haters come and shit on my story or tell me that I'm doing something horrible, which is in this space is very uncommon.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
no, overwhelmingly positive, Lucho. It's been awesome. This last 8 weeks has been such a positive ride. The drill program went so well. We had no hiccups. The support from the actual drillers was beyond what I expected, and then the team's just been doing fantastic. So my geos are making the right decisions. And they're currently working so hard to get the next steps lined up so that we're ready to hit the ground running as soon as that geochem comes in.
Let's mention them. Who is on your team? Are you fully covered with know-how with the team?
So, yeah, the from board level all the way down to the field, we have primarily geos. So I'm not a geo. My specialty lies in developing relationships, in organizing companies, in marketing, and so I surrounded myself with the best people that I possibly could. Denis Laviolette's our chairman. He was one of the founders of Newfound Gold, a very experienced geologist, very solid, has that exploration mindset, and that's what differentiates him from a lot of other geos that are out there. He's looking at the broad scale all the time. He doesn't get caught up in these minute details. There's a reason he left Newfound Gold when they were moving into production. He's like, this isn't me. I want to look at the big thing. And so it was nice to be able to get his focus at KLDC. I have Gary Nassif, Christina McCarthy, Vincent Dubé-Bourgeois. They're all on our board and provide incredible feedback on both our drill planning as well as any type of geological insight. All geos, all people who have been successful in the industry. And then the actual team that I have, we have two senior geos, Mike Kilbourne, who's that seasoned veteran. He's logged thousands and thousands and thousands of meters of core in the Abitibi over the last 50 years. And so he's the guy where you have him on the rig and he sees the rock and he goes, I saw this at this mine. I saw this here. And you listen, right? Like you listen. And one of the things that he thought, he's like, we're drilling right into this. So like at the very top of our drill holes, we hit mineralization. So from surface, basically. So you go through the overburden and it's 15 meters of overburden, and then we hit mineralization, and then we hit massive sulfides. And he goes, I think we're drilling this the wrong way. I think people are hitting this, have been hitting this, and you don't question. You go, okay, Mike, you make the call. And so he was the one that decided, let's flip the drill around and let's drill this. Let's just put 100 meters, because up to that point in time, 100 meters had hit the syenite, and that's where that's the edge, right? That's the pluton that's come in. And so he basically said, let's flip it around. Let's see what's behind these. And that's where we hit at 97 meters in our last drill hole. And it's open. The only thing is that we ended in mineralization, which is it's frustrating, because we go, okay, well, that could have gone on forever, or that could be it. It could be a meter more. And so that's the unknown at this point in time. The casing was left in, so we're able to go back there and check it out. But it was almost a pre-planned distance. And so once we hit that 102 meters, we have those 5 meters of mineralization at the very end. But that's what got us really excited about the opportunity, in that it's open at depth. It's showing that increase in mineralization. It's showing that it's a juicy system. And so the chances there are very exciting. And then the last but not least is our other senior geo, Drake Hayden. He's our young gun. He's the guy that's spinning the models around, putting everything into Leapfrog, because if I ask Mike to put a map together, he'll get out his pencil crayons and his ruler and draw it out for me. And so he's kind of our digital geo. So it's a beautiful mix that I have across the spectrum. And so it makes for a very strong team.
Yeah, sounds like a strong team. It really does. What's the budget for this drilling program?
So the nice thing about working in the Abitibi, or working in Kirkland Lake specifically, is that we get to draw from all around. And so our meterage is quite efficient. And so for the 1,700 meters, it's about 400,000, 450,000, including assays, including geologist costs, room and board, all of those things. And so very efficient program. We had, at the beginning of the program, we had about 1.2 million in the bank. We've had warrants that have been exercised since then, and some other things. So we've had more money come in. So we're still sitting with a nice healthy budget to be able to continue this. The next thing, like I said, is going to be that geochemistry and the helicopter MT, and then we'll be back drilling as soon as we've interpreted that data.
Yeah, are there any additional financing strategies being considered to accelerate drilling across the district scale land package?
Yeah, so the plan is really to get the assays back, figure out exactly what we're working with from that regard, with regards to grade of mineralization. And we've had quite a few people requesting, to be financed leads on this story. So we're assuming that it's going to be in the next 6 weeks. We'll be leading into a financing to capitalize on this opportunity and really build up a big budget to be able to have ongoing drilling basically, year round, and we have enough targets that we're able to explore in that way, and enough runway. And so that's the plan is basically, let's get some of this information back, let's fill up the coffers, and let's get to work in finding this massive deposit, because we know it's in there.
Sounds very good. What about M&A? Are you interested in acquiring more land adjacent to your properties? Or you're strictly focused on what you have right now?
I'm always interested in a deal, Lucho. Like, that's the thing, is I get calls every week with people being like, "Oh, we're the only junior Explorco of this size in the area." Like, nobody else comes close to the land package that we've put together. And so, everybody wants a little piece. "Oh, can I join in? Can I sell you this?" And when a deal's there to be made, I'll listen. But when people are asking for the sun and the moon, we don't need it. That's the best part, is we built this in a bear market and we're moving into a bull. And so we still haven't gotten the value for what we are yet. With this land package, it's like, how could you possibly value, a 40,000 hectare land package in one of the most prolific belts in the world? It's unfathomable, because the only other people that hold that level are the majors. And so, yes, I'm open to more people bringing in, and I do have conversations, like I said, every week where someone is trying to sell me one piece of land or another. But the prospects that we have right now, I don't need any more land, which is the incredible part. It's very exciting.
It makes sense. Final question, news flow from the company. What can investors expect, let's say, in the next 2 or 3 months?
Yeah, it's going to be ongoing with regards to development surrounding this Winnie Pluton. Geochemistry is the first and foremost. I have every intention of putting out the results as we receive them. I'm not a sit behind the veil of deception kind of guy. The way that we do things, I've been a junior mining investor for years, and I've seen some of the worst situations where, you never know what's going on. 6 months later, you get a press release and you go, "Oh, okay, well, that's a big pivot. Why didn't we know about any of that stuff?" And so one of the things that my team and I do is the Treasure Hunters video series, where we, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, we basically share exactly what's going on. The one we put out yesterday with the press release, I literally walk around to every hole and give an explanation as to what we did and why we did it and what we're looking at, show you the rocks. I have nothing to hide from that regard. We're trying to be as open and transparent as possible. And so it allows people to come along that journey with us. And so it's not only just news flow from the press release. You're going to be getting those updates consistently and regularly, so you know exactly what's happening from that regard. In the next couple of weeks, we'll spin that model around so people can see exactly, what the lithochem looks like. And so we can see exactly, this is the shell of the syenite, and this is where it's plunging. This is what we're excited about. And people will see that to come on board and really be interested in it. But from a news flow standpoint specifically, we're going to be having our geochem coming through. We'll be initiating that heli-MT survey as soon as it makes sense. We're working with partners on that, which I can't disclose too much information on, but it's to share costs amongst other people. And then the interpretations of that, so there's going to be consistent news flow. And then when we're back to drilling, etc., it's just ongoing. And that's the fun part about where we are and the stage that we're at, is we're quick to pivot and quick to, get moving. And so we have a lot of runway now with all of the opportunities that are going to be surrounding this Pluton.
And I wish you luck with that. That was Stefan Sklepowicz, CEO of Kirkland Lake Discoveries. Stefan, great chat, and I look forward to host you when you will have some new update for the shareholders.
Thanks, Lucho. I appreciate you having me on and can't wait to share more of our story.